Welcome back to our deep dive into cybercrime. We were talking about how interconnected we are in this digital world.
Yeah, it's amazing and a little scary how reliant we've become on technology.
It is, and all that interconnectedness brings its own set of vulnerabilities.
Oh, sure.
So let's talk about vendor concentration.
Okay.
It's a critical issue that I think a lot of people don't really think about.
It flies under the radar, but it's a big deal.
It is. Basically, it means that a few large tech companies dominate key sectors of the digital economy.
Right, like think about Microsoft.
Right.
How many businesses, governments, individuals rely on them for email, software, cloud services?
Right. It seems like everyone uses Microsoft in some way.
Pretty much. And that's what makes it a concern.
But how does this concentration make us more vulnerable to cyber attacks?
Well, imagine if a major tech provider like Microsoft suffers a big security breach. The ripple effects would be enormous. It's not just about the people directly using their services. It's about all the other systems and organizations that rely on those services functioning properly.
It's like a domino effect.
Exactly. One thing goes down and it can bring a whole bunch of others with it.
And I remember the 2023 attack on Microsoft's Exchange email service,
Oh, yeah?
where Chinese hackers exploited vulnerabilities to gain access to millions of email accounts.
That was a big one.
It was. It caused widespread disruption, data theft, and it really highlighted the potential dangers of relying so heavily on a single vendor.
Right. It's like putting all your eggs in one basket.
Exactly. And the trend toward consolidation in the tech industry, with fewer companies controlling more of our digital lives, is only amplifying that risk.
Yeah, we're becoming more and more reliant on fewer and fewer companies.
So while there are efficiencies and benefits to having these big tech players, we need to be aware of the security trade-offs.
Absolutely. We need to think about what we're giving up in terms of security when we go for convenience.
Right, so it's a balancing act between convenience, innovation, and security.
Exactly.
Speaking of interconnectedness and potential vulnerabilities, let's move on to this concept of dual-use commercial services.
Okay.
I find this really interesting because it kind of blurs the lines between the civilian and military worlds in the digital age.
Yeah, it's a bit of a gray area.
It is. Governments are increasingly relying on commercially available technologies for really critical functions.
Oh, for sure.
Everything from communication systems to satellite imagery.
Right.
And these same technologies are often used for civilian applications as well.
Exactly.
So you're saying like the same satellite network that gives us our GPS navigation might also be used for military surveillance or communication.
Exactly.
Wow. And that creates a unique set of vulnerabilities.
It does.
Because if someone attacks a commercial satellite network, it could have a huge impact.
Yeah, it could disrupt military operations, civilian infrastructure, financial markets, even emergency response systems.
That's a scary thought.
It is. We're so reliant on these systems and we don't even realize it.
And we've seen this play out in real life, haven't we?
Yeah.
Like the war in Ukraine has shown how much both sides rely on commercial satellite imagery
Right.
and communication networks.
Right.
And how vulnerable those systems can be to disruption or manipulation.
Exactly. The conflict in Ukraine has been a real wake-up call.
It has.
It's shown how interconnected our digital and physical worlds have become.
Right.
And how even things that seem like civilian technologies can be weaponized.
It's a sobering reminder that cyber warfare isn't some far-off threat.
No.
It's happening right now.
It is.
And it can have a very real impact on our lives.
Absolutely.
But before we spiral too far down that rabbit hole,
Okay.
let's step back for a second and recap what we've learned in this deep dive.
Yeah, good idea. Let's take stock of where we're at.
Okay, so we've talked about a lot of really scary stuff.
We have. It's a lot to process.
It is. But let's recap what we've learned so far.
Okay, sounds good.
We started by looking at the mind-blowing cost of cybercrime.
Right.
Trillions of dollars.
$10.5 trillion annually by 2025.
Yeah, truly staggering number.
It's crazy. If cybercrime were a country,
Right.
it would have the third largest economy in the world.
Bigger than the GDP of China.
It's hard to even imagine.
It is. And the scary part is it's only growing.
Yeah, 15% per year.
It's a massive problem that affects everyone.
Businesses, governments, individuals alike.
Nobody is immune.
Then we talked about all the new sneaky tactics that cybercriminals are using.
Right, they're getting really creative.
They are. Like targeting edge devices.
Oh yeah, our routers, firewalls,
The
VPNs.
things we use every day without even thinking about it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what makes them so vulnerable.
And then there's living off the land.
Using the tools that are already on your system to attack you.
It's like they're hiding in plain sight.
They are. It's very clever.
And of course, we can't forget about AI.
AI is a game changer,
It really is.
both for good and for bad.
It can be used to improve security, but it also makes cybercrime more accessible.
And more sophisticated.
Right. We're seeing things like deepfakes, personalized phishing emails, AI-powered big data analysis.
It's like you're using AI to do their homework for them.
In a way, they are. They're using it to find the easiest targets and the best ways to attack.
And then there's ransomware.
Oh, yeah. Ransomware is a nightmare.
It is. The average ransom paid in Canada last year was over $1 million.
Wow. That's a lot of money.
And that's just the financial cost.
Right. The disruption it causes can be even worse.
Especially for critical infrastructure.
Like hospitals, energy grids, transportation systems.
Things that we rely on every day.
Exactly.
And ransomware as a service is making it easier than ever for criminals to launch these attacks.
Yeah, it's a business model now.
Which is terrifying.
It is. And the tactics are getting more aggressive, too.
Like data theft.
Right.
Direct threats to victims' reputation attacks.
They're not just after the money anymore. They want to cause as much damage as possible.
So it's not enough to just protect your data anymore. You have to protect your reputation, too.
Yeah.
We also talked about state-sponsored cyber threats.
Yeah, the big players like China, Russia, Iran.
They're engaged in espionage, intellectual property theft, even trying to influence public opinion.
It's all about power and control.
And they're not afraid to use cyber attacks to get what they want.
No, they're not.
And then we explored how vendor concentration is making us more vulnerable.
Right. When a few big tech companies control everything, it creates these single points of failure.
And if one of those companies gets hacked, the ripple effects can be enormous.
Exactly. It's a trade-off between convenience and security.
And one that we need to be more aware of.
We do.
Finally, we looked at dual-use commercial services.
Yeah, that gray area where civilian and military technologies overlap.
Like the same satellite network that gives us GPS might also be used for military surveillance.
It's a really interesting and complex issue.
It is. And it highlights how interconnected our world has become.
For sure.
So we've covered a lot of ground.
We have.
It's a lot to take in.
It is.
But the main takeaway is this. Cybercrime is a complex and evolving threat that affects all of us.
Absolutely.
And we need to be informed and proactive to protect ourselves.
Knowledge is power.
So what can we do? What proactive measures can we take to minimize our risk in this ever-changing landscape?
Well, there's no easy answer.
Right.
But there are some basic steps that everyone can take. Be vigilant about suspicious links and emails.
Right. Don't click on anything that looks fishy.
Exactly. Keep your software updated.
Because updates often include security patches.
Right. Use strong passwords and enable multi-factor authentication whenever possible.
That's a good one.
It is. It adds an extra layer of security.
And for businesses, having a robust cybersecurity plan is essential.
Absolutely. Invest in security awareness training for your employees.
So they know what to look out for.
Exactly. Regularly back up your data.
Just in case something happens.
Right. And have a plan in place for responding to an incident.
So you're not caught off guard.
Exactly.
It's all about being prepared.
It is.
And knowing what to do if the worst happens.
Right. And remember, if you do become a victim of cybercrime, report.
Yeah, don't let shame or embarrassment prevent you from seeking help.
Reporting helps law enforcement track these criminals, and it can prevent others from falling victim to the same scams.
It's a collective effort.
It is. We all need to work together to make the digital world a safer place.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with this thought. Cybersecurity is an ongoing process.
It is.
The threat landscape is constantly evolving.
It never stands still.
Which means our defenses need to evolve too.
We have to stay ahead of the curve.
Stay informed, stay curious, and never stop learning.
That's the best advice I can give.
And for more deep dives into the topics that matter, don't forget to subscribe to The Deep Dive.
We'll be back soon with another episode.
Until then, stay safe out there in the digital world.